What's good, everyone? This is Monaro and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to cover chapters 17 to 22. Hope you enjoy. Bran is dreaming of falling. It seems that he has been falling for years. But I never fall, he remembers as he falls. As the ground gets closer, Bran believes that he will wake up in an instant before he hits the ground, like he always has before. And if you don't? Asks a voice. A crow is with him, telling him to fly. Bran insists that he does not know how to fly. The crow asks him if he has ever tried. Bran then asks the crow if he is really a crow, and the crow asks Bran if he is really falling. Bran begins to cry, but the crow insists the answer is flying, not crying, and that flying is easy. When Bran mentions that the crow has wings, the crow says maybe Bran does too. When Bran searches himself for wings, the crow tells him there are different kinds of wings. Bran asks the crow what he is doing, and the crow responds that he is teaching Bran to fly. When Bran looks down again, he sees the whole realm and everything in it. In Winterfell, he sees the inhabitants going about their work and sees the heart tree in the God's Wood looking back at him. Bran sees his mother contemplating a blood-stained knife aboard a ship sailing on the narrow sea, and his father pleading with the king near the trident. He sees Sansa crying herself to sleep and Arya holding her secrets in her heart. All around his family, Bran sees shadows, one as dark as ash with the terrible face of a hound, and another in armor as golden and beautiful as the sun. Over them all looms a giant armored in stone, but with only darkness and black blood behind its visor. In the far east, Bran sees dragons stirring in the fabled Shadowlands. Bran turns north to the wall, where he sees Jon sleeping alone and growing cold and hard. Then Bran looks beyond the wall and beyond the curtain of light at the edge of the world into what he calls the heart of winter. What he sees there makes him cry. The crow tells Bran that he knows why he must live, because winter is coming. Bran sees spires of ice rising up to impale him and the bodies of 1,000 dreamers before him. The crow tells Bran that he must choose, fly or die. Bran spreads his arms and flies. The crow reacts by pecking at Bran's face between his eyes, blinding him. Suddenly, the crow dissolves into a serving woman with long black hair. Bran realizes he is in Winterfell. The serving woman drops her basin and runs down the steps shouting, "He's awake!" Bran touches the burning space between his eyes where he was pecked but cannot feel a thing. Bran's direwolf jumps up onto his legs, but Bran cannot feel it. When his brother Robb arrives, Bran looks up calmly and says, "His name is Summer." As their ship Storm Dancer prepares to dock in King's Landing, Catelyn is joined on deck by Sir Rodrik Cassel. Catelyn notes that Sir Rodrik looks much better than he has for days. Sir Rodrik has been chronically seasick throughout the voyage, forcing him to shave his befouled cheek whiskers. After Captain Moria Tumitis leaves them, Catelyn and Sir Rodrik discuss how to go about their investigation of the dagger. Catelyn suggests speaking to the Red Keep's Master-at-Arms, Sir Aron Stantagar, who may recognize the weapon. Sir Rodrik reminds Catelyn that they must be careful she is not recognized. This brings Lord Peter Baelish, the King's Master of Coin, to Catelyn's mind. Baelish, still known by the nickname Littlefinger, given to him by her brother, was raised with her at Riverrun as her father's ward. They had been close until Peter had challenged Catelyn's betrothed, Brandon Stark, for her hand. Brandon had only spared Peter because Catelyn had pleaded for his life. After his recovery, Peter had been sent away and Catelyn has not seen him since. Sir Rodrik proposes that he go to the Red Keep alone because without his whiskers, he is unrecognizable even to the few who might know him. After they disembark, Catelyn and Sir Rodrik move into a modest old inn suggested by the ship's captain. After Sir Roderick leaves, Catelyn tries to get some sleep but is woken by the city watch of King's Landing. They show her a seal depicting a mockingbird in gray wax, the sigil of Peter Baelish. As she prepares to accompany the soldiers, who do not recognize her, Catelyn wonders how Peter knew she was in King's Landing and settles on Storm Dancer's captain as the culprit. Catelyn is escorted to a tower room occupied by Peter. When Catelyn asks how he knew she was in the city, Peter replies that Varys knows everything that happens in the city. He does admit, however, that Varys does not know the reason for Catelyn's visit. Catelyn lies that she merely yearned to see her husband and daughters. Peter does not believe this for a moment and asks Catelyn to let him help. Before Catelyn can answer, they are joined by Varys. After profuse courtesies, Varys asks to see the dagger. Catelyn is astounded by Varys' knowledge of things no one could possibly know and produces the dagger for inspection. Upon examining the dagger, Peter reveals that it once belonged to him until he lost it betting on Sir Jaime Lannister in the tourney of Prince Joffrey's name day. Peter explains that Jaime was unhorsed by Sir Loras Tyrell. Peter's dagger was won by Tyrion Lannister. Jon is training with the other recruits under Castle Black's Master-at-Arms, Sir Alliser Thorne. Jon is by far the most skilled swordsman, and during a sparring match, he accidentally injures Gren. Disgusted with the recruits, Thorne calls an end to the training for the day. Jon knows that Thorne dislikes him, but that he dislikes the other boys more. Thorne mercilessly berates them all and has given Jon the moniker Lord Snow in mockery of Jon's bastard status. To Jon's annoyance, everyone has taken up using the name. Jon has found Castle Black cold and the people colder. He has no friends among the 20 recruits and finds that he despises them more as time goes by. Jon resents that nobody but Tyrion Lannister told him that the wall would be like this. The fact that even his father never told him makes it hurt all the worse. Even Jon's uncle Benjen seems to have abandoned him, becoming a very different man who spends all his time among the high officers. 3 days after arriving at the wall, Jon had pleaded to be allowed to come on a ranging with his uncle. Benjen had told him that he was just a boy who had yet to earn the right to go. Benjen also explained that while he loved his family, the men of the Night's Watch are his true brothers. The next morning, Benjen had had smiles, but not for Jon, telling him that they would speak when he returns. Jon goes to his sleeping cell to be with Ghost, thinking of how much he misses his family. His thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of Gren, Toad, and 2 other recruits. All of them are brutes and bullies sent to the wall for crimes. After Gren insults Jon's mother, a short fight breaks out that soon has Jon on the ground. However, before the boys can hurt Jon, Donald Noy, the smith, intervenes. After the others leave, Noy tells Jon that the Night's Watch has need of every man, and that there is no honor in killing boys like Gren. When Jon insists that they insulted his mother, Noy points out that them saying it doesn't make it true. When Noy reminds Jon that he is in the Night's Watch for life, Jon reflects angrily on the fact that Donald Noy had a life before taking the Black. He feasted and wenched and fought in battles, only taking the Black after losing an arm during the siege of Pike. Jon claims that the others hate him because he is better than them, but Noy insists that they hate him because he thinks he is better. Noy then calls Jon a bastard and a bully. Being called a bully surprises Jon because his attackers were all older and bigger than him. Noy explains that Jon has humiliated and shamed the other recruits, who have had no formal training in swordsmanship, whereas Jon was trained by an anointed knight. Jon starts to feel ashamed, but is still angry. Noy tells him to accept his life on the wall and reconsider how he treats his companions, or else to sleep with a dagger by his bed. As he leaves, Jon looks up at the wall, a massive blue-white cliff of ice that fills up half the sky and dwarfs Castle Black beneath. The wall is the largest structure built by men according to Benjen, and the most useless according to Tyrion. Older than the Seven Kingdoms, to Jon the wall seems to represent the edge of the world. Tyrion interrupts Jon's look up at the wall by commenting that it makes you wonder about what lies beyond. Since arriving, Jon has seen little of Tyrion, who has been an honored guest among the high officers. When Tyrion asks Jon if he is curious about what lies beyond the wall, Jon replies that there is nothing special, but inside he wishes he could have ridden with his uncle Benjen on a ranging. When Tyrion calls him Lord Snow by mistake, Jon objects, but Tyrion asks him if he would prefer to be called the Imp, and reminds Jon to make his weakness his strength by accepting it. Tyrion asks about ghosts, and Jon tells him that he changed the direwolf in the old stables during training, but that the rest of the time he stays with Jon in his sleeping area in Harden's tower. Tyrion says he thought those buildings were abandoned, but Jon explains that since most of the Underman Castle is abandoned, nobody cares where a person sleeps. He continues on to tell Tyrion that he sleeps alone because the others are afraid of ghosts. Tyrion declares the others wise, then mentions that Benjen Stark is late returning from his ranging. Jon recalls that his uncle was supposed to be back by his name day, which is now a fortnight past. Tyrion says that he has heard that a great number of rangers have disappeared recently. In the common hall, Jon gets food and chooses a spot away from the other recruits, and Tyrion sits opposite him. Sir Alliser interrupts Jon's conversation to tell him that the Lord Commander wants to speak with him about a message concerning his half-brother. Tyrion suspects the worst and gives Jon his sympathy. Jon races to the Commander's Keep, where Lord Commander Jorah Mormont gives him a message from Robb at Winterfell. The message explains that Bran has woken up but is now a paraplegic. Jon, overjoyed that Bran will live, rushes back to tell Tyrion. In his joy, Jon also apologizes to Bran and offers to show him how to defend against the move that injured him. Sir Alliser sarcastically remarks that he would have an easier time teaching a wolf to juggle than training Bran to fight. Jon replies that he will take the wager, as he would love to see ghosts juggle. All the men in the hall, including Bran, begin to laugh. As Sir Alliser clenches his fist in anger, Jon realizes that he has made himself a lifelong enemy. Ned arrives in King's Landing tired and ready for a meal and a hot bath. Instead, he is immediately informed by the royal steward that there is an urgent meeting of the small council that he must attend. After momentarily losing his temper, Ned decides it is best not to offend the council on his first day in the capital. Therefore, he tasks his own steward to see that his daughters are guided to their rooms and that Arya is not allowed to go exploring. In borrowed clothes, his are still all packed, Ned arrives to find 4 members of the council waiting for him. Littlefinger, the master of coin, Varys, the master of whisperers, Renly Baratheon, the master of laws, and Grand Maester Pycelle. The simpering eunuch Varys immediately expresses sorrow over the troubles on the road and assures Ned that they are all praying for Prince Joffrey's recovery. Ned coldly informs him that the prince grows stronger every day. When he sees Renly, Ned is struck by how much he looks like a young Robert. Littlefinger immediately quips that Renly is much better dressed, having spent more on clothes than many ladies of the court. Upon introducing himself to Ned for the first time, Littlefinger mentions that Catelyn has most likely mentioned him before. Ned recalls that Littlefinger also knew his brother Brandon, adding that Brandon mentioned him often and with some heat. Littlefinger responds that he would have thought heat did not suit the Starks, who are rumored to be made of ice and to melt south of the neck. Ned replies that he does not plan on melting anytime soon. After a short greeting to Grand Maester Pycelle, Ned asks after the other members of the council and is told that Stannis Baratheon left for Dragonstone shortly after the king went north, and that both Sir Barristan Selmy and King Robert are still riding through the city. When Ned suggests they wait, Renly explains that Robert finds the details of coin and crops boring and rarely bothers to attend. Then Renly says that the king sent him ahead to convene the council to handle an urgent matter, and Littlefinger produces a sealed letter for Ned. The king's letter contains an order that a tourney be held in honor of Ned's appointment as Hand of the King. Ned is incredulous and not particularly happy with this extravagance being held in his name. The prizes alone total 90,000 gold dragons, and the costs are sure to run high as well. When Ned questions whether the treasury will bear the expense, Littlefinger reveals that the crown is already over 6 million gold pieces in debt, half of it to the Lannisters. Ned is shocked. The Targaryens left a treasury overflowing with gold. He cannot believe that Jon Arryn allowed Robert to beggar the realm, but the council explains that while Lord Arryn was a prudent man, Robert did not always listen. Ned insists that this tournament is something the realm cannot afford, and declares that they will consider it later, then leaves abruptly. As he proceeds towards the Tower of the Hand, reflecting on the miseries of the last fortnight of the journey south, he is intercepted by Littlefinger, who tells him he is going the wrong way. After a long journey through the Red Keep, Ned eventually realizes that Littlefinger is not leading him to the tower. Littlefinger explains that he is leading Ned to his wife, but Ned does not believe him. Eventually, Littlefinger brings him to the foot of a bluff outside the castle, where they mount onto waiting horses and ride into the city. Littlefinger leads Ned into a brothel he owns and tells him his wife is waiting inside. Ned is furious at being taken all this way to a brothel and holds a knife to Littlefinger's throat, claiming his brother was too kind. He is interrupted by a man he eventually recognizes as Sir Roderick Cassel, disarming his suspicions. Littlefinger leads Ned upstairs to meet Catelyn, explaining that a brothel is a good hiding place because it is so unlikely. After embracing and exchanging news with Catelyn, Ned sees the scars on her hands, and she places the dagger used against Bran in his hand. However, Ned cannot understand why Tyrion Lannister would have attempted to murder Bran. Littlefinger states that the reason is obvious and that Tyrion would have never acted alone. Ned tries to assure himself that Robert could never have been involved in this, but he remembers all the horrid things the king has either supported or ignored. Queen Cersei, on the other hand, Ned has no trouble believing to be responsible. Littlefinger reminds him that to accuse either is treason, but if they can find proof of Cersei's involvement, it is possible the king will listen. Ned feels that he should take his case and the dagger directly to the king, but Littlefinger reminds him that there is no solid proof that Tyrion was involved. Then Catelyn explains that she has told Littlefinger about their suspicions concerning Jon Arryn's death, and that Littlefinger has promised to help them learn the truth. When Ned asks how much Varys knows about all this, he is told that Varys has not been told, but Catelyn warns that the man knows things no normal man has any way of knowing. Ned then asks Littlefinger to give him time alone with his wife. Littlefinger asks if they want time in a bedchamber, but Ned tells him that it will not be necessary. He just needs a little time. Catelyn goes to Littlefinger and tells him that she appreciates his efforts and has found a brother that she had thought she had lost. Ned is not so confident that Littlefinger can be trusted, but says nothing. After Littlefinger leaves, Ned gives Catelyn instructions for his bannermen to fortify Moat Cailin and to keep a careful watch over Theon Greyjoy in case his father's fleet is needed. He hopes it will not come to war and that Robert will believe him when he finds out what happened. Tyrion is dining with the high officers of the Night's Watch on his last night at Castle Black. Lord Commander Mormont proclaims Tyrion a cunning man and asks him if he must leave so soon, saying the wall needs men like him. Tyrion brushes off the suggestions with an offer to scour the 7 kingdoms for dwarves. An offended Sir Alliser Thorne claims that Tyrion mocks the Watch, but Tyrion counters that he is only mocking Sir Alliser. Thorne demands that Tyrion makes his japes with steel in hand. Tyrion replies that he already has steel in hand, a fork, which he brandishes against Thorne in a mock attack. A roar of laughter rises from the other officers, and Sir Alistair leaves in disgust. After claiming Sir Alistair's meal as his spoils of victory, Tyrion comments that a man like Sir Alistair should be mucking out the stable, not drilling the recruits. Mormont takes the opportunity to complain about the quality of his men. Sir Alistair is one of the few living knights to have taken the black. Sir Jeremy Riker goes on to explain that both he and Thorne fought for King Aerys II Targaryen during the sack of King's Landing and were forced to take the black or be executed by Tyrion's father, Lord Tywin Lannister. Tyrion's only comment is that his father is indeed very fond of heads on spikes. Tyrion asks for more wine, and Bowen Marsh comments that he has a great thirst for a small man. Maester Aemon states that Tyrion is a giant among them at the edge of the world. Tyrion, speechless at being called a giant, calls the Maester kind, which leaves the Maester equally amused. When they retire to the fire, Mormont informs Tyrion that he will receive an escort as far as Winterfell. Tyrion soon realizes that the Lord Commander is working his way up to asking a favor, and so cuts right to it by asking if there is any way he can repay the Watch's kindness. Mormont beseeches Tyrion to speak to King Robert about the condition of the Night's Watch and its need for men. Mormont goes on to elaborate on the high rate of disappearance among their ranging parties, including Sir Waymar Royce and Benjen Stark. The Watch strength is now under 1,000 men, leaving only 3 men to guard each mile of the wall. Then Mormont laments that he is old and there is no one qualified to take over command because the Watch has become an army of sullen boys and old men. He has maybe 20 men that can read and fewer who can think or lead. Tyrion promises that he will tell the king, his father, and his brother, but he knows that it will do no good. Mormont then asks Tyrion how many winters has he seen. When Tyrion replies with 9, Mormont adds that they have all been short. The long summer is ending, and Porton says a long winter is coming. When Tyrion suggests the fabled endless summer may have come, Mormont insists the days are already growing shorter. Mormont then confides to Tyrion that the wildlings are amassing and moving south, running scared from something worse than just the cold. Tyrion, bored by Mormont's dark words, reiterates his promises and leaves. Outside, it is bitter cold. As he walks the castle grounds, Tyrion is taken by a whim to climb the wall one last time. His legs are cramping too much to climb the stairs, so Tyrion takes the winch cage up. At the top, he meets Jon Snow with Ghost. As they walk, Tyrion asks how the recruits are doing under Jon's instruction. Jon tells him that they are getting better. Tyrion offers to carry any messages that Jon might have south to Winterfell, and is rewarded with a torrent of requests. Most of all, Jon wants Tyrion to help his crippled brother Bran. At first, Tyrion denies that he has anything to offer Bran, but Jon insists that his words will be enough. When Tyrion agrees, Jon thanks him from the heart and calls him friend. Tyrion, deeply moved by the gesture, quips that while many of his kin are bastards, Jon is the first that he could call a friend, and they shake hands. They both look out over the haunted forest north of the wall. As they watch, Jon says that he has been watching for his uncle Benjen. Tyrion assures Jon that Benjen will return one day. When Jon declares that if his uncle does not come back, he and Ghost will go north to find him, Tyrion wonders who will go out searching for Jon and shivers at the thought. When her father enters the small hall after dinner has already begun, Arya can tell that he has been fighting with the council again. Jorah Cassel asks about the tourney everyone is talking about, and Eddard asks if anyone is talking about the Hand's displeasure with the whole idea. Sansa is tremendously excited by the prospect of a tourney and begs to be allowed to attend. When Septa Mordain mentions his family will be expected to attend, Eddard agrees to ensure that seats are provided for both Sansa and Arya. Knowing that Prince Joffrey will be there, Arya insists she does not want to attend a stupid tourney. When Sansa taunts that Arya would not be wanted anyway, Eddard loses his temper and threatens to change his mind. Quickly regaining his composure, Eddard excuses himself. Once he is gone, his guardsmen start talking excitedly about the tourney. No one talks to Arya, but she likes it that way. Back in Winterfell, she had enjoyed listening to the men talk, but now the sounds irritate her because she blames them all, even her father, for doing nothing to save Lady and Micah. After looking disgustedly at her cold food and the people around her, Arya pushes away from the table. When Septa Mordane insists that Arya hasn't eaten, she dashes away. She runs to her chamber and locks herself in. She digs to the bottom of her chest where her sword needle is hidden. Arya thinks that if she could climb like her brother Bran, she could steal some food and run away, and that if Jon Snow was there, she would not feel so lonely. A soft knock on her door proves to be her father, who says they need to talk and asks politely to come in. From the way he talks, Arya is ashamed to realize he is more sad than angry. When she lets him in, her father immediately notices her sword and asks whose it is. Arya explains that it is hers, and her father asks to see it. Her father notices Mikken's mark on the blade and remarks that if his 9-year-old daughter can be armed from his own forge without his knowledge, how can he be expected to rule the 7 kingdoms? Eddard asks who gave her the sword, but Arya stays silent, not wanting to betray Jon. Her father accepts this, but tells Arya that a sword is not a toy. When asked what she thinks Septa Mordane would say about her playing with a sword, Arya insists she was not playing. Eddard states that he should break the sword over his knee. Arya responds that needle wouldn't break. The sword having a name amuses her father, who claims that Arya reminds him of his sister Lyanna, who might have carried a sword if their father had allowed it. Arya is surprised when Eddard says she looks like her aunt, who was always described as beautiful, something never said of Arya. Eddard asks if Arya knows anything about how to use a sword, and she replies with the advice Jon gave her. Stick 'em with the pointy end, she tells how she was trying to learn, and sadly adds that she asked Micah to practice with her. In grief, she starts to sob against her father's chest. He tells her that Micah's death was not her fault. Arya sobs that she hates them all, the queen, the hound, Joffrey, and the king. Then she adds that Joffrey lied, and that she also hates Sansa. Eddard says that everyone lies, and that he does not believe that Nymeria ran off. Arya then explains that Jory promised not to tell. Eddard informs her that Jory did not tell, but that he figured it out, because even a blind man could tell that the wolf would not have left willingly. Arya then explains how she and Jory had to throw rocks to drive the wolf away. She then asks her father if she did the right thing, and Eddard assures her that she did. Eddard then tells Arya that winter is coming. He explains to her how wolves stick together, and that in the winter a lone wolf dies. Now there are enemies threatening the Starks, so they must stick together like a pack of wolves, and it is time for her to start growing up. He hands Arya back her sword, saying she can keep it. He only asks that she not stick her sister. 3 days later, Arya is sent to the small hall by the steward. She is met by Forel, a former first sword of Braavos. He tells her that he is her dancing master and throws her a wooden sword, which she cannot catch. Unperturbed, Syrio tells Arya that the next day she will be there at midday and catch the blade. Arya picks the practice sword up as instructed and finds that it is very heavy. When she complains about the weight, Syrio explains that it is heavy to make her strong. Then he fixes her grip, telling her not to squeeze too tight. When Arya says that she might drop it, Syrio tells her that the sword must become a part of her arm, and that she cannot drop a part of her arm. When Cyril calls her a boy for the third time, Arya objects. He insists that it does not matter. A sword has no gender. He then explains that what he will be teaching her is not the hacking and hammering iron dance of Westeros, but the swift and sudden water dance of Braavos. Then he tells her to try to strike him, and she tries unsuccessfully for 4 hours until every muscle is sore. The next day, the real work begins. Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I will be doing a Q&A at the end of the month for the entire book, so please leave your questions down below so that I can compile them if you want them answered. Again, thank you so much for stopping by. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and please subscribe to come back for more. Thanks again. Bye.